All right, I'd like to call to order the Ways and Means Committee meeting of November 16th, 2021, and it is 3:28 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Hovey Wright.
Here.
I should say here, Muskegon.
Well, thank you.
Here.
Commissioner Nash.
Here.
Commissioner Pego.
Here.
Chairman Skolnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
Commissioner Sear.
Here. Next item is approval of minutes for November 2nd, 2021. Support. Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Chair,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Larry.
Thank you. I've got to find it now. There is a correction. It's under the new business portion of the minute. I'm on page 5, item number 125. It says it was moved by Commissioner Larry, supported by Commissioner Pego to, it's supposed to be not liquidate, but eliminate the hazmat team and liquidate the act is not to liquidate.
We'll make that correction.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I get an approval with the correction? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, we'll move on to public comment on an agenda item. Item number 4. Is there any public comment on an agenda item? See any online, Linda?
There is. Fill out a yellow form. Can you fill that out and then turn it in?
See anything online? Oh.
Nope, nothing online at this point. There may be by the time.
Yeah, Commissioner Sear, he wants to make it. There's 2 of them makes a comment.
If you want to make a public comment, there's yellow forms in the back, and then just turn those into either Kathy or Commissioner Sear. Thank you.
I think as long as they make them fill them out before they leave, you could have them come forward.
We just really need their names.
Bob usually does.
All news to me.
Thank you.
They don't have to fill it out. They can just walk up.
All right, Brian. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Brian. So if you would, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Brian McKelly. I'm the president of the Muskegon Area Fire Chiefs, as well as the Public Safety Director for Pico Township. Thank you for your time today. We received a letter drafted concerns of the motion made to sell the assets and disband the Muskegon County Hazmat team. In that letter, you should have received many examples of some of the calls and the responses that the team has made and the value it is to our community. One of the bigger issues is, from my standpoint, as well as other chiefs, is that we feel like we're not being utilized for our input on the sale or the use of the team or the value of the team to our communities. We don't feel like there's been a partnership with us. This was brought to us as being part of the solution rather than finding out, hey, we're going to disband the team and sell the assets off. We have a long-standing hazmat team in Muskegon County. We have had the best hazmat team in the state of Michigan, and a lot of it is done by our departments with staffing. The county's hazmat team through West Michigan Hazmat Association helps provide the training, and then we as departments also allow for our staff to be released, call out, as well as for training that services all our community. To not have this entity available to our communities as well as our departments it causes a huge liability to our communities and a public risk. So I'd like to be a part of a solution rather than finding out through a meeting that they're looking at disbanding a team that services all the counties. So I'm available to answer questions for the time if needed. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. McKelly. I also have Pete McClary or McCarthy.
Oh, McCarthy.
McCarthy, oh, gotcha. Read your writing there, buddy.
Thank you for your time, Commissioner Pete McCarthy. I'm the fire chief for the White Lake Fire Authority. The hazmat team is a very important part of our emergency response, and specifically my jurisdiction. One of the biggest draws that this county has for tourism is Michigan's adventure. If you notice in the letter that was drafted to you, the first example about the chlorine leak that affected almost 60 people, transporting 30 to the hospital, happened there. I'm tasked, and my department is tasked with protecting my 3 jurisdictions with a population of about 10,000 people. On an average Saturday, Michigan Adventure brings in an additional 15,000. So there is an extreme potential for injury and worse with all of those things that are going on. I also have to mention, we have 3,500 employees alone at Helmet through the 7 plants that are sprinkled through my jurisdiction, that half of them also happen to be right in the middle of residential neighborhoods and right next to schools. The level of expertise that this hazmat team brings, the responders of this community and all of the different departments, we are well trained. We are very good at what we do, but we can't be experts in everything. That's why the hazmat team exists. They are specialized experts in some of the stuff that we don't know. Their experience is invaluable to helping someone like me as a fire chief and an incident commander. All of our responders, they are invaluable in the continued protection of these communities for this entire county. So please reconsider disbanding that team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Anybody online? Commissioner Bagel?
Nope.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Richard Warner.
Which one? Emergency Services Director. The presentation is not actually going to be by me. It's going to be by my hazmat chief, Tony Gutierrez.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Tony Gutierrez, Mesquite County Hazmat Chief. Just want to make a correction on your agenda. I am Tony Gutierrez. I'm not representing the airport, and I'm not a lieutenant colonel, so I'm the hazmat chief. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present today. I have just some stuff prepared for all of you. So once we get done, if you have questions, by all means, please ask. As you know, I'm the hazmat chief for the County Hazardous Material Response Team, and also the president of our West Michigan Hazardous Material Association. I want to address some of the comments that were made at the last meeting, and also provide some background on our hazmat team. As you know, the West Michigan Hazardous Material Association renewal agreement regarding hazmat response efforts between the county and the association was just signed on September 28th, 2021. This agreement is valid through September 30th, 2024, and it specifies what each party is responsible for. I'm not going to get into the meat and potatoes of that, but I want to discuss a few of those things. The Mesquite County Emergency Management Department funds the hazmat response program. Our budget is limited and covers team insurance, response pay, hazmat physicals, MDOT inspections on our vehicles, and minimal preventive maintenance on our equipment. The budget does not cover response pay increases and then additional funding to purchase new equipment and so on and so forth. Our team budget is then offset by a cost recovery and also the chemical feed program for Sarah Title III, 302 sites within Muskegon County. Therefore, in 2020, the operating cost of the hazmat team was $16,049.57 versus what's budgeted in the actual county budget of $60,488. Now, that funding is not guaranteed with the cost recovery and the chemical fee, but if we look at the cost of the hazmat team operating at full cost of $60,488, the hazmat budget accounts for approximately 0.11% of the fiscal year budget, or 35 cents per resident in Muskegon County. When it comes to our hazmat equipment, much of it is attained through federal grants. Therefore, the county would not be able to liquidate the equipment as mentioned at the last meeting. Under FEMA rules, disposition of equipment acquired under federal award states, when original or replacement equipment acquired under this award by sub-recipients is no longer needed for the original project or program for other activities currently or previously supported by DHS or FEMA, you must request instructions from the recipient to make proper disposition of the equipment pursuant to 2 CFR section 200.313. In layman terms, the county would need to return the equipment back to Region 6 for it to be transferred to another hazmat team within the region or to the state of Michigan. If there was value of the equipment, which there would be, as all of our equipment is operational, then it would be up to the grant personnel on what the next steps should be. The West Michigan Hazardous Material Association is a 501(c) corporation where the association provides the qualified team members to operate the hazmat team and the equipment. We currently have 14 members who live and work within Muskegon County, many serving on your local fire departments. All of our team members are NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association 472 certified hazmat technicians with much more training, such as the Emergency Management Homeland Security Training Center, Michigan State Police. They have a 24-hour highway cargo technical specialty course, federal courses that are out there, such as the 40-hour weapons of mass destruction hazmat technician course. Our team members have a minimum of 175 hours of training to meet our team's hazmat level. We are the authority having jurisdiction, and we set that standard so we provide the best care for our community. Our 5 command officers have over 75 years of combined emergency response multidisciplinary experience. The hazmat team consists of trained professionals who mitigate hazmat incidents while saving life, property, and environment. For example, we take care of advanced air monitoring or patient decon. Our training and insurance is for hazmat mitigation, not hazardous waste cleanup operations. There are many regulations and standards, OSHA, MyOSHA, NFPA, public law, etc., for emergency mitigation operations. Another reason we do not participate in cleanup operations is most businesses have a cleanup contractor on retainer that is licensed and insured for that type of operation. If you don't know, hazardous cleanup operations are very expensive due to the remediations and disposal of the chemical. Our hazmat team responds with personnel and equipment within our county within a timely fashion. We wouldn't be driving from Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo as the cleanup contractors would be. We also have specialized training, some only offered to emergency responders, and equipment to assist in mitigation of hazardous materials incidents. If you look at our team capabilities flyer, which is included in your packet, from what I understand, you can see we do much more than hazardous waste cleanup, or we do much more than a hazardous waste cleanup company could ever offer. Everything from weapons of mass destruction to radiation detection to white powder calls. Now, we may respond to a small number of hazardous material incidents within the year, but this is a good thing. You don't want to have a hazmat team responding to hundreds of incidents within the county. We are here for the community. We have ownership in this as our families live and work within the county. We provide a service to our community to take corrective action to stop or mitigate the release of hazardous materials while safeguarding the welfare of our citizens, emergency response personnel, and the environment. Our team's motto is dedicated to excellence, delivered with pride. Our team members are here to serve, and they're not for personal gain. I also want to say within the packet that was provided, you should have a recruiting flyer and the annual brief summary that we've provided to North Shores Fire, which has some pictures and some other information. With that, I thank you for your time and consideration, and do you have any questions that I can answer for you?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, go ahead.
So if I understood you correctly, you don't clean anything up.
Negative.
All right. Secondly, what have you paid for rental for the equipment storage over the past decade?
Well, we've been all over the place in the past decade. Right now, currently at the hangar that we are store all our equipment at, we pay the utilities. However, I know there's an agreement that has been put together that it's going to be split across this throughout the county, but through the sheriff's department and the hazmat team for rent of that facility. Rich would probably know more about that than I would.
So in the past decade, you paid no rent for?
Not that I'm aware of, strictly for the utilities.
Do you know what the cost is to the county taxpayers for your services and to have this team?
Well, it'd be that $60,000 I talked about before. However, we have the cost recovery and the 302 site funding that offsets that. So as I stated, 2020, the taxpayers paid roughly $16,000. That's it.
Maybe this is a question for, I'm going to challenge you on that in a second. So is this a mandated service that the state says that the county has to provide?
Well, not that I'm aware of. So we're a service that's provided to the community to offset any hazardous material incidents that occur within the county. And as you heard from one of the fire chiefs, we are a specialized team with specialized equipment that no other fire department would have access to.
So if I ask you for a list of cleanup sites that you've cleaned up, you couldn't give me any. Can you give me this list of service calls you provided in, let's say, the last 5 years? What services have you?
Yes, I can tell you right now. For 2020, we had 7 full team responses and 1 phone consult in 2020. And this year we've had 3 full team responses and 2 phone consults.
Okay. Who dispatched you this year?
Well, you mean who requested our services?
Yes.
Okay, so just so you know, when the fire department requests, it goes to Muskegon County, and then our command team makes a call to that incident commander to help them out. But let's see, we had Michigan State Police. We had, let's see, that would have been in Nuevo County. So I don't remember. Yeah, I know.
Fremont Fire Department.
Fremont Fire Department.
I'm interested in your calls to Nuevo County.
Norton Shores Fire Department. We had Michigan Eagle, which is the old DEQ, and then also Muskegon Sheriff's Department for this year.
I had asked Rich Warner earlier this year about calls for this year, and he said you didn't have any, and you're telling me you had 3.
Yes, we had 3 full responses. Yes, sir.
All right. So may I continue?
Yes, please.
Administration, can you provide a cost that's budgeted the county pays for this service?
Yes, it's in your packet there.
I know I would like it for the record publicly.
Yeah, on page 39. The total department revenue is $54,347, and total expenditures shows $54,347.58.
So when I asked you about this earlier, you told me that the budgeted expense for the county was $30,000 is what it costed. They have a budgeted amount of $30,000.
Yeah, I'll refer you to page where those numbers come from. On page 37, this shows the hazmat expenditures, and then it has a clinical fee of $33,250, and it has revenue cost recovery of $9,186. So as of 2021, the general fund subsidized at $11,910.
When I asked you, you said that they had a budget amount of $30,000 that's come out of the general fund.
At the end of the year, I mean, we start off with the expected expenditures of 54, but the last 3 years has been offset by 39,000, 30,000, 33,000. So that number I was referring to was the difference between the two.
Okay. So these expenses that are incurred by customers and taxpayers, they've cleaned nothing up. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's just what he said.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, I have a question for you, sir. What do you define as cleanup?
Cleanup. We have environmental contractors. Thank you for the question. We have environmental. You mentioned contractors from Kalamazoo. We have contractors right here in the county that provide these services. In fact, they're in many of these factories on a daily basis, and some of them are located right here in the county as their home office. So there are not just contractors in Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids, there are contractors that are seated right here in the county.
You are correct, sir. However, that takes more than just people, it takes equipment and those specialized personnel that have to show up. They may have an office here and that may be office staff, but you can't do a lot of the operations we do with one person.
So I'm going to correct you on that, because they do have equipment and they do show up, and they show up with a lot of equipment, because I've seen some of those bills. And they're hefty when they show up, and somebody's paying for it. And it's not generally the taxpayer when they show up.
You are correct. And just so you all know, when we respond, we mitigate the hazard. We don't do the cleanup, because that is obviously a very expensive thing for the customers. Most of the people, like a spiller, whether it's a fixed site facility or the truck going down the road, they have someone on retainer that does that cleanup for them. Because like I stated, they're insured and licensed. And so you cannot just call some random person and have them come in because that's who they have to utilize for that incident. But we are there to stop the release or mitigate the hazard. And when we do cleanup, it's basically where we would take and assist the fire department maybe with some oil dry or stuff like that. So it'd be minimal stuff that we might help assist with the cleanup portion. But when I talk about cleanup, I'm talking about a serious incident where you have, thousands of gallons of product on the ground, or a situation where you got a tanker rollover and there's, product all over the place. We're going to mitigate the hazard, but we don't have the licensure to clean that material up. And that's why they have a cleanup company that comes and does that for them. Yes, sir.
And that during that cleanup, is that something that you all oversee and supervise to make
Yes.
it done properly?
When we arrive on the scene, the fire department is ultimately the incident commander. So they're in charge of that scene, and that's by law. They're in charge of that emergency response scene. We show up, we provide a support function to them and assist them with the hazard mitigation and the specialty to take care of that. Once that's done, then we will assist them as needed. So if they bring in another tanker to do an offload and they have to do grounding and bonding where they take care of any sparking issues, we're definitely going to stick around and make sure it's done properly.
The other thing I wanted to ask, you said you had 3 calls this year?
Yes, 3 full team responses so far this year.
Can you explain exactly what those calls might entail?
So we, for example, the bomb threat, we responded up to Wave County to assist them as requested. We did some air sampling for them. We're, like I said, a support function to assist them on what's going on, because wasn't for sure on exactly if there's other chemicals that were released or if it was some type of dirty bomb that was provided during that time frame. Another one was on US 31. We semi-tractor accident, basically hauling product, and we assisted with that. And the other one for a full team would be Michigan Eagle. It's not a hazard at that time. They have, this one was a citizen complaining about the soil and some issues, having internal issues, and they've been to the doctor and all this, but everything's been cleared. They're looking for our expertise to run it through our presumptive analysis analytical testing equipment to make sure that it's not something hazardous. And we have that specialized equipment to be able to provide that to them. Those are our 3 that we run this year.
Lastly, what's one of the worst spills you guys ever had to oversee?
I'd say yeah, come on up, Chris. Chris is my deputy chief. I've been on the team for 20 years. Chris has been on for roughly 25, but we've had a lot of different incidents. The chlorine spill at Michigan Adventure is a serious one because it involves a lot of people and an actual release. We've had releases down at the old paper mill. It just depends.
Yeah.
So
Christopher Dean, I'm fire chief for Muskegon Heights Fire Department, but I'm the deputy chief on the hazardous materials team. When it comes to complexity of incidents, we've responded to a number of things. Whitehall Leather, there was an incident where a truck driver put the wrong chemical into the wrong tank, creating a toxic fume or toxic cloud that then killed the truck driver. We were called to the incident scene to provide assistance to the fire department. The first thing we did was determine what the chemical was and used our staff to determine what the chemical mixture would produce, and then did advanced monitoring to say, okay, where is the cloud going to go and where is the level of hazard that's there. That's that skill right there, that item right there is not something that you will get on a regular basis from any local cleanup company. And you pose an excellent question about the difference between cleanup and our hazmat response. I worked for Young's Environmental 2 years back, 20 years back now, as a project safety manager. As a project safety manager, we get a call from a company saying, hey, we spilled this, we come out, we do the cleanup. We're not worried about the citizens. We're not worried about the public. We're worried about this company wants us to clean this up and within OSHA guidelines. The key difference with the hazardous materials response team that you have in your county, the one that's in Grand Rapids Fire Department and other counties, is the responsibility is for us is to protect the citizens and the environment in an emergency phase. And after we stabilize that incident and bring it to a level to where it can be cleaned up, that's when that environmental company comes in with the backhoes, with the frac tanks to skim off product that may be on the water that we've contained in booms and things of that nature. So it's important that, you know, the differentiation, yes, there are good quality cleanup companies in Muskegon County and throughout the state of Michigan. But when it comes to emergency response to protect the citizens when chemicals get improperly mixed at a amusement park, that's us, that's your local fire department working together. When it comes to a tanker offloading into the wrong tank and creating a large cloud, that's your local fire department, that's us working together. Those are the things that you don't get from the cleanup companies. So to get back on topic, complexity of spill and issues, Whitehall leather, definitely. The mixing of those chemicals endangering people and killing one person, serious incident. Lomac, when the tetranitromethane was being made as a byproduct of their, I want to say the yellow dye, and the explosion that occurred that injured multiple people, and there was a large amount of byproduct on the site that a national company had to come in and clean harbors to remove that product. We were a part of the process of evaluating the site, rendering it initially safe, making determinations, helping provide consult to local hospitals who were receiving patients in that have been contaminated. The local ER, when someone is contaminated, they depend on your local fire department and Muskegon County hazmat team to provide them with information on how to treat and decon the patient, and potentially, if it's a mixture of chemical, what that chemical becomes.
So one last follow-up on that. So how would this be handled without a hazmat team?
Without a hazmat team, you would depend on, for the emergency response aspect, the protecting citizens and environment immediately, you would depend on another county. The local fire department would be above its level of training experience and OSHA allowance, what OSHA allows them to do. And you would call another county and say, will you please come and help me? And so you would have the initial call time, the spin up time of specialized resources, those resources that are utilized in the low frequency yet high risk incidents, and then their response time from the other county. If you were to compete hazmat teams, the next closest capable team that comes within our capabilities is Grand Rapids. But there's a spin up time. Although one of my best friends is their deputy chief of operations, if I call him right now, it still is an hour before they're going to have a truck on the road. And then 40 more minutes before they get here. And they don't have the connectivity with our local emergency rooms, our local medical providers, and our local fire departments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
So Ottawa County doesn't have a hazmat team?
Ottawa County has a hazmat team, but when you measure capabilities and staffing numbers, their capabilities and staffing numbers are not matched with ours. Muskegon County hazmat team, some of the assets that Chief Gutierrez spoke of earlier, we were one of the original regional response teams where we received assets through federal dollars following 9/11 that Ottawa County was not in the picture and did not receive. Grand Rapids, Muskegon County, Traverse City, all received additional items and resources as it relates to that. And so Ottawa County has a team. They have very good people, but when it comes to the overall training, number of resources and response connectivity, they're not in the same typing level. If you were to look at a FEMA typing list for resources, trained personnel, and experience, we would be several steps ahead of them.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I have one more
Yes,
question.
please.
So this motion originated out of a budget concern and it is a rental space that's being occupied at the airport for which could be additional income to the airport. So if you have to pay rent or you move to another site, how will you be able to pay if you are charged rent for the airport at a fair market rate, how will you pay for that?
That is an excellent question. And I think that what we would do with any type of budgetary item, we would come back to Mr. Warner and we would come back to Mr. Eisenbarth and we would discuss what are the options. So we would look at what are our options and what are the opportunities and the ability to afford these items. So I understand what you're saying. The airport has needs. You've made some contracts and you're looking at different items with that. But to fairly answer it, we would, as a team, we would go back to the administration that you trust as commissioners to work on ideas to meet that need.
So it comes down to if that you have to pay rent, it's going to come down to a county expense is what I'm hearing. And you don't have the ability to fundraise for a building or rent on your own. You would come back, it would become a general fund expense or liability.
In all fairness, we are a county resource. We are a county asset. We are something.
You are right now, and you depend on the county for the resources. My question is, the county doesn't have extra money to create all of these different departments. So, and you don't have the money apparently to be self-funded. That's why this issue, that's how you wound up at the airport, because it was just a convenient place to put your department and there was no cost. We didn't show a cost on the ledger for the expense of that hangar. And yet the airport's been struggling financially for years. It's just been hidden out there. It's an asset, I agree. And I'm not trying to I'm sorry, I'm going along. Am I okay, Ken?
Yes, please.
I'm not trying to suggest that you provide inadequate service. I do appreciate the information that you've given me today. My problem with it is you were tucked out at the airport. There was never a budget expense. The airport's been allowed to struggle financially for years. And yet we have a hangar, and we don't just get rent from the hangar. There's other services. When we bring in a company that rents a hangar, they have all kinds of other services. I'm explaining this something that you probably don't really care about. But the fact is the airport doesn't gain revenue. It struggles financially that you've been tucked into there for years. And now we're going to have to find a new location for you, or you're going to have to pay rent there. So if that we move you someplace else and you have to pay fair market rent, then it's just an expense back to the general fund. And we don't necessarily have the funds for a hazmat team, and we're going to have to expand the budget. So if right now we budgeted $30,000 for hazmat for 2020, that was in the budget. Now for 2022, the budget's going to have to be expanded to include that rent. That's my issue with it. Somehow we're going to have to carve out this rental space for the hazmat team in the future, whether it's just financial or we got to provide a building for you.
And again, I think the answer is within giving us the opportunity to work with the trusted administrative staff to find solutions. And it may be a solution of adjusting the fees so that it does not impact the general fund budget, or looking at what spaces are available. But truly, it's about giving us the opportunity to work with the administration.
Well, we are the administration, and that's what we're doing right now. The county, the Board of Commissioners are the administration. And so we're trying to craft a financial opportunity for the county airport. And then how do we pay, how them be successful? We can't say, well, you don't need to be successful financially, and yet the hazmat team gets to be successful. You know, Pardon, you've been taking from the airport for a long time, and now we're going to have to create another funding mechanism for hazmat.
Commissioner Nash, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to commend the hazmat team for all the work that you guys do. It's very important work, and it's important work that I know I'm not going to go out there and do, and probably terrified to do because of the risk that you all have on your own lives, and then taking care of that. You know, when I think about the smoke cloud and a trucker dying, you never know what you're running into. And I was happened to run across the incident that happened out here on the road not long ago. And I just remember the stress of seeing what I was seeing and watching all these first responders run into the hazard, which is just beyond me, because I was at home in shock for about 24 hours trying to deal with it. So there's a lot that you all do. It's a tremendous support for the people in this community. I don't want to downplay that whatsoever. I think that the cost that we incur, especially from the airport, is minuscule to their budget. This little rental fee that we're talking about is nowhere near close to even maybe 1% of their budget, if anything. So it's not that you're causing the airport to have a downfall in their budget or some type of budget issue. That has to deal with the services that we're providing through the airport. It doesn't have to do with hazmat. So I just want to say that I think it's important for us to find a way to work out an agreement with the airport, along with the emergency, the sheriff and everyone else, to make sure that we can do that, because it's really supporting us as a county anyway. And I don't think we're going to get any costs. It's going to be better than being at the airport, because market value for that kind of space is going to be probably 10 times what we could do for ourselves. So I think this is rather a moot point, but I think the necessity of the hazmat team has been explained, and I think is very important for this community. And I think that we just need to continue to support that and find ways to work through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. I think we need to move on. This is coming up again under unfinished business, so we'll have a chance to discuss it again.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to acknowledge Chief Dean. I would like to know the city he's from.
Pardon?
What city are you from?
I'm from the city of Muskegon Heights.
Thank you very much.
As a note, although he's the Grand Rapids Airport Fire Chief, he lives in the city of Norton Shore.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
By the way, should we have, how many chiefs we got in here? Yeah. Police, fire, whatever.
No, just walk.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have another presentation by Health West.
This is more informational item, not necessarily presentation.
It is an informational item.
Yes, I know it's not listed that, but
yes, it is. Okay, thank you very much.
And one thing I would like to add to that is the idea that we have a joint work session with that board, the Health West board, sometime in January, to discuss how we're going to work together.
Okay, so we're going to go over this list of stuff that they have. Okay. For their transition, supposedly. Okay. All right, items for consideration. WM21/11-126 to approve payment of the accounts payable of $7,914,498.47, covering the period of October 23rd, 2021 through November 4th, 2021, as presented by the county clerk.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this item? Hearing none, I'd like to have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Laring.
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes.
Commissioner Pago.
No.
Chairman Skolnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
Will be 7 yes, 1 no.
That item passes. The next item is WM21/11-127 to reorganize the Human Resources Department as presented and adjust the budget accordingly.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and support. Questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I want to.
Commissioner Laring, please.
How many departments are we going to reorganize?
Well, several have already been done. So to answer your question, I don't have another one yet in line, but they'll say it will come up, but a lot of them have been done already.
Any other questions? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. A roll call, please. This is to do with financial. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Laring.
I got to keep going first.
Because Commissioner Hughes isn't here, so it kind of has thrown off my.
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes.
Commissioner Pago.
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay, now we're moving on to unfinished business, and the unfinished business is WM 21-11-125 that was postponed on November 2, 2021 and November 6, 2021. The item was moved by Commissioner Laring, supported by Commissioner Pagan to liquidate the hazmat, to eliminate the hazmat team and liquidate its assets.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and support. Questions, comments, or concerns? Commissioner Hovey Wright, please.
Yes, I think those present and that have presented have made a case for something that we need, maybe not frequently, but when we need it, we need it. The cost is minimal to our budget. I'm sure we'll be able to find $30,000, and it's mainly transferring money from one place to another when we pay for storage. So I am going to support this.
Mr. Chair, I want to follow up.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm going to vote no. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Chair Skolnick, please.
I just, I can't, sometimes it's really bothersome how we get bogged down in some of these issues that are so small. It's ridiculous to waste the number of hours we are on a few $1,000s. So I want to say here, the cost last year with the general fund was, I don't know, it was $11,000 or something, which amounts to 48 100,000ths of our total budget. 48 100,000ths. If this is needed once in a year and saves somebody's life, one of the functions of government is to do things for the citizens that they can't do for themselves. And this is one of those things, and it's cheap. This is a bargain. And I mean, we're going to call Grand Rapids and have them come over if they're not busy, or call one of these companies who are interested in getting paid for cleanup, but they're not particularly interested in what that cloud was of stuff that's making people die. We can find this money. They can charge a little bit more, maybe for calls, or they're charging $1,500. It's voluntary, but there are a number of corporations that are paying it. So you ask to pay a little bit more and explain by that charge, they're avoiding the charge. If they don't pay, they get charged more if they do show up. So it's really insurance. And I also want to say, I don't know how you couldn't support this. And as far as the storage goes, we can come up with that too. There's in a $250 million budget, we can come up with that. I also want to say just one thing about, because I happen to know Chief Dean, and I have worked together on a nonprofit basis for free for a local nonprofit for many years. And this man is an expert at what he does, and I would trust him with anything. So
thank you.
Excuse me. You meant.
Sure, Hovey Wright, go ahead.
You said you support this. You mean you don't?
I don't support it.
He supports the hazmat team.
I support the hazmat team,
Okay.
but not the resolution.
Okay. Commissioner Laring, please.
So I want to comment to both commissioners. So yes, the cost has been inexpensive because they haven't had to pay any rent, and it's come at the cost of the airport. Secondly, you have you can roll your eyes if you want to, but you have a recommendation whose budget we're going to cut to come up with that rental cost in the $30,000 per year.
I'm sure we'll be able to work it out. It's a very small.
Excuse me.
He was asking me a question. I was.
Yeah, well, that's not.
So there's somebody's going to have to cut. I'm not sure which department's going to have to make the cut because we have to have a balanced budget, and we didn't do it this year. So maybe one of these years we will have a balanced budget, and we're going to have to make cuts someplace.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Chair Skolnick.
The charge for the hazmat team at the airport is $3 per square foot and $7,650 a year. There is space out at the Salinca building, out at the wastewater. I understand it may not be as convenient. The cost for that space was $500 a month for everybody, which included not just that. Right. So I'm sure we can come up with that money. It's just not a lot of money. Even if it was, we can probably do it in charges for services.
Well, through this conversation, I guess I guess been made a little bit more aware of the protection of the citizen and that kind of thing, and I do appreciate that. And the cost, that was the other thing I was thinking. Some of that cost may be covered by this the fees that you're charging businesses to try to cover the cost of keeping your equipment, because it's got to leave the airport. That's a given. We need that airport building as a hangar. But one of the other options that Chair Skolnick just said was the Salinca building, and that would be a very, very low cost option. The building needs a little bit of work to bring it up to where we need it to be, and I think that we could cover the cost of storage for that unit with that. So that's my comment. Yes, Chair Pagel, or Commissioner Pagel. The chair or something, right?
Right, Mr. Chair, thank you. So I very much appreciate all of our first responders, police, fire, and everybody, the very important role you play in our society. However, it is not a mandated service statutorily that the county requires a hazmat team. Now, I understand where you're coming from and where you're saying you're that middleman right now, but it has not always been that way, and it does not need to be that way, nor is it mandated that it stays that way. So maybe us at the fiduciary level of what we are supposed to be as stewards of the taxpayers' money can come up with a way to create them and out to create a separate authority, as we have done with other areas of the county. And Chair Skolnick, as you say, it's a drop in the bucket. It's only this much money. It's only that much money. Well, all these drops in the bucket are why we are so in debt. And we are not constitutionally mandated. We take an oath to the Constitution, and I will not vote for it, not because I don't think that it has value, but because it is not a service that the county is supposed to provide. We are not in the market to save people's lives. That's not what the county governance is for. That is not what it is. That's not.
Maybe we'll make
It's not
fire too.
Anyway, like I said, it's not to downplay. I very much appreciate everybody's expertise and your integrity, and that's not what the question is. The question is, it's not a statutory mandated function of the county. And so I will be a no vote under that premise alone.
Commissioner Larry.
Thank you. So this idea of renting the Salinca building, so we're just going to stick them in another hidey hole. The idea of $500 for the Salinca building is absurd. One, that's a completely different board. That is not this board's decision to determine it's $500 a month. The market value of that rent, $500 a month, you put that out on the market for $500 a month, and you're going to have a long line of people wanting to rent that building for $500 a month. The market value of that building is much, much higher. So we're just going to stick the head, just like this board did this forever. They've stuck them out at the airport and not charged anybody. So now we're going to, give them the Salinca building for $1? Come on, we can't just stuck it on the users group out there for $500 a month. And then we've moved the farm equipment out of there. He's been storing farm equipment in there. He was resistant when I first asked him of its availability because he had use for that space. Now he's going to move equipment out so that it can utilize a different purpose. And then we're going to give him a great deal, $500 a month. You all ought to look at that building to think, I'd pay 3 times that amount to rent that building. I don't know where this $500 came from, but the Board of Public Works didn't approve it. I don't think it came from the users group. If we just built a brand new building out there at the wastewater, and I guarantee you that thing costs a lot more than $500 a month to build a new building for the wastewater. So we're just sticking it on another department to pay this bill.
Mr. Chair, as Chair of Public Works, I can tell you there is no agreement that has not been talked about of anything.
I would agree with that.
So I don't know where that came from, but it's not to my knowledge.
I just want to reiterate what our chairman said. I think we're talking about a minuscule amount of money. We're not talking about any grandiose deficit that this is doing to the county. You know, we're talking about $7,000 a year. I'm sure that could be gathered in a fundraiser, but you know, we can keep making big things out of this. But I think what we need to look at is the big picture. And the big picture is that Muskegon has a reputation of being a area where the federal government allows these different grants, whether it be MATS, whether it be the sheriff, whether it be hazmat, where they allow us to be able to receive these items, where a lot of locales are not able to receive these. And if we start cutting them off and handing them back and saying we don't want them, we're going to be shooting ourselves in the foot when it's something down the road we want. And I know how this goes because I've dealt with some of those from administration and the federal government sometimes, and you can get a bad reputation over some actions that happen down here because I've heard them speak on it in different occasions. So we need to be careful how we move forward and all these different actions that we keep trying to take. These are not just local minuscule issues. These are issues that will travel up the chain and people will remember, and Muskegon will have that reputation. And then when we want something down the road, we won't be able to get it. So we need to move carefully. I think we need to support our hazmat team and continue to support all of our different service providers, especially emergency first responders. These are jobs we're not going to do. And I think we are in the business of trying to save lives or at least give people a better quality of life. And I think if my kid was stuck in a hazmat situation, I would definitely want this team out there trying to get them out of it.
Commissioner Pagel.
Can someone tell me how long this has been in the county and how it was handled before?
Chief Dean, you've been here 25 years.
The hazmat team itself has been around for just shy of 35 years within the county at a port, and I believe the funding mechanism has been pretty much the same for all those 35 years.
And how was it handled before that? You might not know. I don't know.
Hazardous materials before that? Prior to the 1980s, hazardous materials response and a lot of the environmental things related to hazardous materials wasn't well regulated. Muskegon County Hazardous Materials Team was one of the first hazardous materials teams in the state of Michigan. In the letter from the Fire Chiefs Association, the reference to being innovative references that in the early 80s, the original formation of the team in North Muskegon Fire, Chief Jay Kurzman, it's referencing being one of the first teams. When it comes to the state of Michigan as in developing community planning related to hazardous materials, some of those first documents on community planning related to hazardous materials started in Muskegon County with Chief Jay Kurzman, who was former chief of North Muskegon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes.
If I could just make
Yes.
a little comment. Muskegon has had a long history of chemical manufacturing. I don't think it's anywhere near what it used to be, but there's been a lot of chemicals manufactured here, and there's been a lot of bad things that have happened over the years too, and maybe they wouldn't have, somebody paid a little more attention to it.
Cheers, Commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Sear, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, Commissioner Brown, go ahead.
Well, I think the way this motion is written is to get rid of the hazmat team. We have two different issues here. One obviously is that, but also to where we're going to store this facility, this equipment. And I think, this motion doesn't include that. So I'm not really comfortable with that. I did see a list of the companies, and Mr. Skolnick, you're correct. There are still a lot of industrial companies here in Muskegon. I would like to see, come back with some cost analysis for cost recovery, from some of these companies and how this could be a little bit more lucrative area to provide cost for storage and some other costs to do with that. But, it's kind of one of the other comments that was made during the motion review was if there is one, the environmental impact is going to cost us more than the $30,000 or $50,000, $60,000 that's going to, if we don't address these issues, that goes down the sewer or it goes into our water and so on. So I'm really nervous about going forward with this, the way it's written at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Pagan?
Yes, so I think maybe Michigan State Police, right? This may be directed to him, but correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't the Michigan State Police provide a hazmat?
No, I don't believe so.
Under their
Response.
emergency response, isn't that part of what they cover?
The experts have to answer that question. No, they do not.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Nash,
I'm voting no.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
No.
Commissioner Wilkins,
No.
Commissioner Brown,
No,
Commissioner Huff-Wright,
No.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Steer.
No.
It'd be 6 no, 2 yes.
Item on our agenda is, or is there any other unfinished business first? Any other unfinished business? Is there any new business?
A couple items I should bring up to the board just to update them. Kathy Moore, I believe, is in the audience to update about COVID.
Okay, that'll be good.
Thank you. Yes, Kathy Moore, Public Health Director, and I do have handouts. Just wanted to report that on Friday, we received a record number of positive cases, 466. We know that a lot of places were closed, including public health, on Thursday, so it could be, a backlog. But we are continuing to see those numbers go up. So the first page here is really just the number of daily cases received from the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020 to current. The second page is the CDC transmission in the US. And it's really to show that even though we look at these numbers locally, this is not something that's unique to Muskegon County. And it's not intended to, condemn or say somebody's not doing something right. There is COVID in the community and in the nation and around the world. The third page, and I'm sorry I didn't label the pages, these are slides, are just a comparison with Muskegon County to our contiguous counties. And the state of Michigan overall was at a 16.7% positivity rate as of November 14th. Our local Grand Rapids region, which is a 12-county region that includes Muskegon County, their average is 23% positivity, Muskegon County at 22.2, and then you see our other contiguous counties there. The total weekly cases, and this does include the 466, Muskegon County recorded 1,086 total cases over the last 7 days from 11/8 to 11/14. The weekly cases per 100,000 population actually converts that to more of a apples to apples comparison based on population. So you would see like where Oceana County has only seen 161 cases over 7 days based on their population, that would equate to 608 cases per 100,000 population. The fourth page is just a graphic chart of Muskegon County in the blue, showing that we trailed behind the state and the region with cases in the previous surge, which was April, and then we spiked up. And then we've been trailing behind since August, and then it's showing that we're spiking, so we're catching up here. The hospitalization page is the chart in blue. shows that statewide, 13.5% of all available hospital beds are occupied by COVID-19 patients. Here in the Grand Rapids region, which again is the 12 counties, 17.1%. And then the chart at the bottom, Mercy Health reported today 63 COVID-19 patients in the hospital, with 23 of them on the ICU and 17 of the 63 on the ventilator. The 31 means that 31 individuals reported to Mercy Health's emergency room yesterday with COVID-like symptoms. And then the Children's DeVos Hospital, 17, and this is a regional number, as well as Mercy Health, is not just Muskegon County residents. 17 kids in the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital with 4 on a ventilator and 23 reported. The next page is demographics of COVID deaths. 415 deaths since the inception of the pandemic. So that's from May of 2020 to current. And again, it does follow age and pre-existing conditions or comorbidities. The next chart really shows the number of cases per month with the corresponding number of deaths at the bottom chart per month. And I think Commissioner Skolnick, you asked the question, 267 deaths recorded in 2020. And I did write that COVID-19 was listed as a contributing factor. So when we look at the death certificate, sometimes there's 3 other causes, and COVID-19 is there, number 3, number 4. Sometimes it can vary how it's recorded, but they are recorded as COVID-19 as a contributing factor. For calendar year 2021 to date, 148 deaths. And I just broke that out. January to June, we saw 95 deaths. And July to November, current 53 deaths. The July to November are is when the Delta variant was highly publicized and identified. And the final slide is the COVID vaccine coverage. A couple of weeks ago, the vaccine for age groups 5 to 11 was authorized, and that changed the denominator with the percentage of Muskegon County residents who have received the initial vaccination as well as completion. But, you know, if you look at the top chart, 90.3% of individuals aged 65 to 74 received an initial dose, and then 85.9 fully vaccinated. The booster doses continue to increase, 18,567 as of 11/11, and quite a bit more after that. That is my last slide, and I'm available for questions. Yes.
Yes, it's more. I see a 0 under the 5 to 11 age group. What are we doing to help with the vaccinating children, and are we going in the schools as a lot of other places are doing it, providing vaccines in the schools?
Yep. Muskegon County received 3,000 doses 2 weeks ago. Public Health Muskegon County received 1,800 of those 3,000. We first prioritized the pediatric offices because they are aware of the kids with underlying health conditions and they should be priority. So we distributed 400 doses to Shoreline Pediatrics, 300 to Muskegon Pediatrics. Then that same Friday, and then 1,000 to Mercy Health because they didn't get their pediatric doses, but they are affiliated with so many primary care physicians. Then that same Friday, so we received the doses on Wednesday, and on Friday, we had the first pediatric clinic at Mona Shores School. We had allocated 250, 236 youth received their vaccine. And since that time, we've been in 6 other school districts.
Great. Thank you. Glad to hear it.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
does your count also include the vaccines that are going to Walgreens and CVS?
Yes.
Okay.
It does. Any individual registered. There are some exceptions because people can opt out of being in the system. Yes, Commissioner Pagel.
So how many of these cases have been vaccinated?
So because the cases are reported as an ongoing and vaccines weren't available, for a long time. I think
No, the new cases last week, the 400 and whatever. How many of those were vaccinated?
So we've seen about 1,216 we've seen 1,216 breakthrough cases, and I think we do have the demographics for the deaths there. 21, is it?
21 out of 416.
Yes.
What was that?
21 of the deaths recorded are.
No, that wasn't my question.
Oh,
my question is, of these new cases, you said 400 and some new cases as of last week or this past week.
Yes.
How many of those people were vaccinated?
We don't know.
You don't ask that?
No, we do ask, but everybody doesn't tell.
We're not tracking that?
We try to, yes. So we do have the numbers, but what we have is 1,216 right now.
So the percentage rate of how many are vaccinated was what again? Can you repeat that?
Well, it's really, because it's an ongoing thing. So some people, COVID-19 is so individualized. So there are people who have been infected 3 times.
That was my next question. If you can get reinfected.
Right.
So
and then there's, they could have a spouse or an intimate partner that almost same exposure and not impacted at all. So vaccines really did not come really available until April. And then even then it wasn't available for everyone. So to say 80% were unvaccinated, well, a good portion of those weren't even able to get a vaccine. It's really not a good comparison. You'd have to just take a point in time and say, of all the cases in October, then what percentage, and that would be a little more definitive. But then I wouldn't even include the 5 to 11 because they weren't even able to be vaccinated.
So with those that are vaccinated can still contract it and they can still spread it.
Absolutely.
Very small.
And so I know I asked this last year before I was a commissioner in public comment, are we just not doing any kind of data analysis for flu anymore? That's completely fallen off the last couple of years.
We get the data, and we know that this year we've seen some pretty serious cases of flu. We will not know though until like February if the strands that's included in the flu vaccine matched the actual strands that's out here. Sometimes, it's after the fact and it'll be 20% effective or 40% effective. But yes, we have that. We're seeing cases of flu this year. We're seeing hand, foot, and mouth. We are seeing RSV, which is just another upper respiratory illness. We're seeing quite a few, and we have there are 500 plus reportable communicable diseases to public health, and so we do follow up with those as much as we can.
So to my understanding, there's been several, and I don't know if it's Muskegon County, I've seen reports in other counties such as Newaygo and other area counties have had schools shut down because of teachers' adverse reactions to the vaccine. They've actually had to shut their doors to the schools.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, we're not aware of that, but there are, it is, again, it's very individualized, the same as the infection, the same with the vaccine. Some people, they do have contraindications to the vaccine. Sometimes the schools schedule like a Friday so that or close to a holiday so that they'll have several days to recuperate.
Thank you.
Chair Skolnick, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just, one of the things you said, well, Commissioner Pagel was asking how many people were vaccinated. A lot of people are real secretive about whether they got the vaccine or didn't, or they don't want to tell you one way or the other. So
Right.
I don't know how you're going to figure that out.
Right, and some people opt out of the MICR immunization system, which we wouldn't have a record of any of their immunizations or vaccines.
Okay.
But yes, they are very secretive, it's self-reported, and we do get a lot of hangups.
Well, this question is not a good question. I mean, I'm not sure what to make of it, because this current surge, right, is after so many people have been vaccinated.
Absolutely.
And it's never going to go away, I suspect. I don't know. And then is everybody going to have to get it before it gets better? I know you don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. We just, we know that the whole vaccine may have been, publicized as an end all when CDC published it, they basically said it may be helpful. It's like getting a flu shot. It has some degree of effectiveness and probably not for everybody. So, most likely, but it's not just Muskegon County. And I think we internalize it and we tend to point at others. It's not just Muskegon County, but people, after they were vaccinated, they really let their guards down and probably thought they could not get it, and they've been surprised.
Yes, go ahead, Charles.
Kathy. I was just going to say, typically, from what I understood, though, if you're having symptoms, they don't typically like to give you a vaccine, but give you more of a treatment.
Treatment is available now.
Similar to a flu shot. If you go to get a flu vaccine and you're sick, they don't want you to get it while you're sick. They want you to come back after those symptoms have subsided.
That's correct.
So
yes.
Usually those people that's been detected would have to wait until those symptoms subside to get the vaccination.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes. So I want to apologize in advance.
I accept it already.
Okay.
All right. So how long does it normally take to get an experimental drug approved?
So a new drug that's introduced to the market, it would take several years.
And how long has this one been on the market?
Approximately, different manufacturers, 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months, and we're pushing it on children already, huh?
When you say we, do you mean you and I?
Apparently, public health is out vaccinating children.
But we are not forcing it, so it's only by request at the consent of the parent.
But you're in the school making it convenient for parents to be deceived, injecting their children with an experimental drug that hasn't been proven to do a doggone thing.
Yeah, I have to say that's not our intent, but yes, we are in the schools for convenience.
Who directed that?
The school superintendent actually made the request, and
they requested.
Yeah, they requested. We absolutely would not force ourselves, and they, it's really been surprising at the turnout, but our first suggestion is that they see their pediatrician. Kids are a little more tender and vulnerable, and could have some. Yeah.
And are the vaccine inserts, the manufacturer's inserts, given to each parent?
Yes, so there is an EUA emergency use authorization form that each parent has to say that they have received it, and they also sign that they had an opportunity for questions. And they do have an opportunity for questions if they have questions.
Thank you.
Can we get information on which superintendents have requested?
Yeah, Would you like me to publish that or would you like me to
Email.
say it right now?
Email
Okay.
it to us.
Sure, absolutely.
Any other
I
questions?
actually have to, I'm sorry, Ms. Moore.
That's okay.
I know, I can tell that people want to go, right?
I have 2 more
Yeah.
items. So we can be
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we always do when I got to talk. That's funny. You guys can miss your dinner, you're getting paid well now. So, Ms. Moore, I objected to this last year. You're using the word a vaccine. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not a traditional vaccine, correct?
Correct.
It is an RNA modification.
That is correct.
Is in any way, shape, or form, has this ever been used on mankind in the past?
I absolutely would not know that, but it would have been tested prior to administration. I would think tens of thousands of volunteers, but honestly, I do not know.
So RNA modification is not a vaccine. And it has been tested for at least 20 years on animals, and it's never been successful. I'm very disappointed to find out that we're pushing it on 5-year-olds. I did not expect this county to be in any way promoting, way, shape, an adult, a consenting adult that wants to continue their lives for an experiment. But children, I just object to this whole thing. Children don't consent. Their parents probably don't know that they're part of a medical experiment that's never been tried on human beings before. And I'm frustrated that we're even making it available. They can go see their doctor. They can get the darn thing for free from Walgreens. I just don't see that the county needs to be involved in this. Sorry. I think you do a great job. I'm just frustrated.
Yep, duly noted. Duly noted. I mean, we had hesitations and we just, you know, it's available.
All right, we appreciate you. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Commissioner, I also have Sandra Van Hyde on the line for any questions. The memo that went out yesterday from the Board of Commissioners about their latest operations of this facility of the courthouse. Would you be interested in hearing from her? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Would you please let Sandra unmute Sandra? No, it's just let her know if.
Are you still under new business? Because I still had other questions, just to let everybody know.
This is new business because it happened yesterday. Sandra, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Am I able to start my video? Yeah, there we go. Hi, everybody. Sandra Vanderhyde, the Circuit Court Administrator. After we met with Kathy Moore yesterday morning and reviewed the data, then it was determined that between the data and the fact that family court, probate court, prosecutor's office, and public defender's office all have positive cases right now in their offices, that we were going to go ahead and close the courts to in-person business. The great news is that our judges can do all hearings but jury trials right now. We're going to go ahead and postpone jury trials for a few weeks until it's safer to do so, but all the rest of the hearings we're able to conduct via Zoom. It's effective starting today, and this goes minimally till December 6th. We will continue to meet weekly with Kathy Moore to analyze the data, and we'll find out when it's safe to open up to the public again. I'm open and available for any questions.
I'm hearing none. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Are separate things.
Correct.
Okay. So you addressed it as the courthouse, that's administration also, but this is just courts.
It's in there's a paragraph in there that says other county offices or not. You just have to read it. There's a paragraph.
I did read it. I just am addressing his comment when he said it was the court house, which is what we're part of right now. Thank you.
The last item that you received a memo from that I requested from the Foster Swift because of the letter dated November 5th from the CMS, which affects this board because this board passed a resolution back in September about requiring vaccines. But CMS has sent out a letter stating that anybody who receives Medicaid, Medicare must have their employees vaccinated. So that goes into effect because they have authority over the counties as well as the states. So that would affect Health West.
Did they also include a letter that the exemptions, there are still legal exemptions? Are people still aware? Did the letter get also included in that with their exemption allowabilities?
It was in their press release, the CMS press release. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm just asking the employees that are being forced now to get vaccinated, are they also being let know that they have the option of an exemption, a legal exemption? They do have an option of a legal exemption.
Brandy can address that if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Brandy Carlson, Health West. We do have a policy that was drafted and a motion from our board that is supportive of this with the addition of the exemptions also. So we already have exemptions received from many of our staff.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
Want to address something you just said, that you're telling me that Medicaid has authority over the county? I don't think they have authority over the county.
Federal government.
Over Medicaid and Medicare funded healthcare providers.
No, they don't have authority over us. They have a decision to make whether or not they want to continue to sponsor us, but they don't have authority over us.
Your correction, if Health West, the county, want to continue to use Medicaid and Medicare dollars, then they have to do vaccines. That's correct.
Sure, I'll be right.
Yes, and a large, very large proportion of the clients receive Medicaid or Medicare, but mostly Medicaid. So I see no way to avoid our responsibility here.
The clients that receive Medicaid are separate from the county employees. So your clients will still be served by Medicaid by somebody that will receive their Medicaid. The county receives Medicaid dollars. And so if we allow this, what we're saying is we're going to throw our employees under the bus so that they can receive, so this county can receive Medicaid dollars. And no one's brought a motion before this board, but I am not in favor of forcing our employees. I don't care how much money the federal government is willing to give us. I am not in support of telling our employees that we're going to mandate their personal medical decisions. And I see this being a huge legal battle, not just for the county, but the state and the federal government, because we're not the only county being implemented by this. But our employees have rights, and we have no right to dictate their personal medical decisions. And just because the federal government wants to throw some money at the county and we want to roll over and dictate to our employees, I find this incredibly inappropriate position that, one, the federal government's putting us in, but that we're willing to put our employees under. I find this unfortunate.
Disgusting.
And that's why I brought this up. So I need there be discussion on this. And if you don't mind, corporate counsel can address our options.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really would like to know.
So CMS has with its, and let me start with this. There's a lot in the news about the OSHA private employer vaccine mandate that is separate from this CMS vaccine requirement for Medicare, Medicaid funded health providers. Done under separate laws, done in different ways. The Fifth Circuit stay of the OSHA rule does not apply to this CMS rule. So unless and until there is some kind of court challenge that results in that stay, this one that we're talking about with respect to Health West is in effect. It only applies to Health West. It does not apply to other county employees. If Health West, the county via Health West does not comply with it, then CMS can impose penalties. Those can include civil monetary penalties, withholding and reimbursement for services provided to Medicare and Medicaid patients, and ultimately up to termination of the Medicare-Medicaid provider agreement. Commissioner Larry, you indicated, people could go elsewhere. I suppose the issue would be a large portion, as I understand it, of what Health West does is with Medicare, Medicaid patients. Without that funding, they likely are not operating. So if that's kind of the practical impact of it. I don't know the numbers. I want to say somewhere 60 million. How much funding is Medicare, Medicaid?
I'm not gonna guess.
Sorry.
That's okay. 67 million of our funding is Medicaid.
I wasn't too far off with that. So the county would need to consider as a practical matter, if it's going to make the decision to not comply, understanding that risk of how and whether it can operate Health West without that funding.
And what portion of the budget is that?
87%.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So I don't really find that funny, this fellow commissioner. The fact that for $67 million, we're going to force some of our employees into a medical experiment. I don't care if it's $100 million that they're paying us. We do not force our employees to undergo a medical experiment. This is going to be just like the 5th District Court. Somebody's going to stand up and say no, and this is going to wind up in court. I don't know what will happen. But right here, there's no one over authority to us. And if they want to keep their $67 million, because I am not in support of forcing any of our employees into a medical experiment.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Charles.
I find that we're spending too much time on this. First of all, no one is being forced to take this vaccine. You can always pack your bags and go find another job. Everyone has that choice. If you're that much against it, you'll find another career. A lot of people are doing just that. That's another reason why we aren't finding enough people in there right now. But right now, I think we have to understand too, it's a federal mandate. We already have had issues in the past with funding when it came to Medicaid and the state. We're at a critical time right now with staff. We're at a critical time with funding. That we do not want to start playing political volleyball with the federal government and Medicaid regarding these dollars. It would be ridiculous and not financially sound. And I understand people have their thoughts and feelings about vaccines or whatever else. You're fine. You know what? I'm okay with all that. You can feel the way you want to feel. Just like anybody that wants to get vaccine will get vaccinated. And those that don't, they'll probably find an exemption or they'll probably find another job. But we can't dictate that and we can't decide for people. And that's really not our job. So this is something that we have to live with, but financially and as a commissioner, I think we'd be very unwise to try to start getting involved with this politically because it will come back to bite us bigger than we know. Again, you said how much of that budget is that?
87%. And may I add, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I will say that the majority of our staff are vaccinated. They wanted to get vaccinated. They were the first ones in line. There's this very small percentage that are not vaccinated, and they have filled out those exemptions. As Commissioner Nash stated, we are not forcing anybody.
And that is true. I'm part of that board, and I realize that it's a small percentage. It's always been a small percentage. Most of them want to be vaccinated.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Lee-Ray.
Yes. First of all, using the word experimental is incorrect. Vaccine is not experimental. It's been tested, and it's been tested by the required number of people over a period of time, not as long as in the past, but it was approved for emergency use, and it's been very successful in as a vaccine. Health West would go under if they had to turn away or lose Medicaid. 87% of the budget speaks for itself. Mr. Laren, you in this room advocated the use of ivermectin.
Still do.
Not to say, and the very next week, the poison control centers were filled with people that overdosed on ivermectin. That, if they're talking about experimental or not proven, that's the one that's not proven. That's the one that causes, it's a horse dewormer. It's not meant to be for COVID, and it's not effective for COVID. It is not recommended for COVID, but you do it.
Doctors
And then,
prescribe it.
You know, they are not real doctors. I can't believe.
So, the other week you asked me for my sources, which I provided to you in an email. Do you have sources that say that ivermectin is not effective?
It's been on Michigan Public Radio, National Public Radio.
You have sources that you can provide.
Those are my sources.
All right. No, you asked for my sources. I provided my sources to you. I can provide plenty of sources to you about the use of ivermectin being effective. I can also provide you sources about hydrochloroquine or the antibodies. I can provide you all kinds of sources. And in fact, I can provide you this source. I used ivermectin for myself and it cured it in 5 days.
Anything.
Excuse me.
So if you want to provide those sources, I can provide you with sources that show that ivermectin is safe and effective, which I can't really find for the vaccine.
All right, it's time to move on.
Yes,
where are we?
I have some comments, so.
Can we move on? Last comment, please.
You guys were elected to do this, to sit here. I don't care if we're here till 10 o'clock tonight. I have something to say, and it's for as long as anyone else on the board does, that's what we do.
I got other stuff to do.
I'm going to reiterate what our public health director, as a professional, stated. This quote unquote vaccine is not a vaccine. It is authorized for emergency use only. That is its only authorization. And you can still get COVID and you can still spread it even though you get the vaccine. That was from her professional admission. You're not going to undermine that, period.
Okay.
Are we still on new business? Because I have something unrelated to all of that.
Are we still on new business? Yes, we are still on new business.
Okay, great. I'm going to move on to my next item,
All right, let's
if I
do
may.
that then.
Thank you. So I would like to explore our options of privatizing hazmat and getting that out from underneath the county. I identify that it may be a need, but as a cost savings, as we're doing with Health West, moving that to its own authority, we're doing that with MATS. Can we look at what those processes would be, please?
I would be interested in that.
Thank you.
When you say privatizing, there was a reference earlier to an authority. Is that what you mean?
Well, I don't know if it means authority. I guess I'll let your legal expertise identify and distinguish what that means, but you have bodies that do the middleman, if you will, excuse me for the not having the correct legal verbiage. But then you have the actual other teams that actually do the cleanup. So just getting that out from underneath the county as, you know, managing that.
Are you, and we could look at different options, but are you envisioning that the county would fund any part of this or that the county would be out of funding that?
Correct. Okay, thank you.
So the last time when we bring up something like that, it was voted whether or not the whole board supports that.
Is it consensus?
Yeah, consensus.
To have her pursue looking at options, she can't just email us what that would look like.
Well, I think last time.
I'll make a motion that we have legal counsel pursue options of, help me out here, Laura.
Privatizing hazmat.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any, oh, sorry, you're the chair. You do it.
Is there any questions, comments, or concerns about this item? Roll call vote, please. Restate it. Could you restate the
motion to privatize?
No. Motion to direct legal counsel.
Yes, thank you. That's what. Motion to direct legal counsel to provide options of privatizing hazmat.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pago?
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick?
No.
Commissioner Wilkins?
No.
Commissioner Brown?
No.
Commissioner Harvey Wright?
No.
Leary?
Yes.
Commissioner Sear?
Yes.
3 yes, 4 no.
Okay, any other new business? Anybody? Wait a minute, you can't stop this in the middle of the show here. Public comment. Anybody have a public comment? Anybody?
Let's see here.
Mr. Dean, please.
Just as a point of order, I'm representing the concept of privatization of hazmat.
Thank you.
Technically speaking, the West Michigan Hazardous Materials Association is a contractor to the county, which is already privatized.
Okay.
The county receives funds and contracts with the West Michigan Hazardous Materials Association, to which you renewed our contract only a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the aspect of privatization in its purest form is already there. That's
It's interesting.
So what other may I?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I know it's not a question and answer, but I'm going to ask them a question.
Go ahead.
Taking the county government out of that, what would that look like?
I'm not sure how.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you could look at that because we have an existing contract.
Well, no. Oh, okay. So contract aside, but privatizing. So we have that, your private entity, you're contracting with the county. If you didn't contract with the county, who would you contract with?
I don't have a good answer for that because it's.
That's what my motion was, to pursue what that would look like.
So I just want to make sure it's clear that currently it's.
I do understand that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Yeah, we did that in September.
Okay. All right. No.
There is someone online.
Someone online with a comment.
Chris Kyla. Can you unmute yourself?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
You can hear me? Okay.
You can hear me, buddy.
So I'm a chemical engineer with 40 years of experience. I've worked in chemical plants with extremely hazardous materials, including the Lomac plant that blew up here back in about 2000. I actually testified in that case. I've worked with nitric acid, hydrobromic acid, some chlorine, a lot of things. And the reason you need hazmat services is due primarily to the fact that we truck and rail transport large bulk chemicals through the county. Even if they don't originate here, sometimes they travel through here. Webb Chemical is one of the biggest distributors in this local area of hazardous chemicals. And if one of these tankers turns over or a rail car derails, you can have tremendous plumes, making people to stay in their houses and turn off the air conditioning and all these things. So hazmat services are really required. It would be important for the county to make sure that whoever they're contracting has current training, that they have adequate resources to deal with the worst case scenario. So if the county doesn't know what the worst case scenario is, somebody needs to figure that out. A lot of times these accidents occur and really bad consequences happen, and they find out that people are just not prepared for the worst case. So I would urge the commissioners there not only to keep services, but to look at what they have, what they can actually handle, and what kind of.
He muted
Is he
himself.
gone?
He muted himself and I couldn't get back.
Nice going, Chris.
His hand
Thank
is
you,
still up,
Chris.
too.
Any other public comment?
It's just the Webster Winterberg has she has like funding for like enforcement for like doing things, and she actually has a.
Sir, could you just go ahead and say your name? Say your name.
My name is Joseph Camp. Webster Winterberg actually has $1 million for each enforcement in the like the state and county that wants to pick it up. That she actually wants the more service to fund and stuff for the enforcement there. There's I guess there's another one that was kind of like somebody was talking about the hazmat or something or other or something. They was saying was some people that are saying earlier pump oxygen tanks for all the people. There's nothing but filters or something. So I mean, coronavirus is kind of a bad for a joke or something. I don't know, some other stuff right now. I don't know a few other things, but then there'd be the actually kind of the coal or something went off, which was kind of like earlier fuel that was actually used for like, you know, something other than shipping, used maybe like the beer mills or something for like, used to be grains going stuff on farms, or kind of like, before we got to, you know, the massive use of like, the thermocouples otherwise used as like solar panels and stuff. So there was kind of the oil and kind of, I think it's kind of a composite of kind of like, you know, kind of leaves and greens and all that sand and stuff. And like, just so when it heats up, it stays heated and, you know, burns, and with like a little chemical like, you know, food and acid or something like human bio or something. It was kind of, you know, just probably that, these days we kind of almost, I think we use it for like, just for gasolines or something like that. I mean, fossil fuels and all that stuff. So, well, the sewers kind of flowed into and made about, you know, some of the similar changes on this kind of like, you know, I kind of know the composite or someone is that piece like the, someone tries to say the dinosaur composite or leaks or something, you know, that sunk into the ground with, you know, some stuff, you know, some, you know, all the years of some sunken and sand and stuff. So, there's otherwise, you know, maybe the chemical runoff for the DNA, DNR or something, or the boats and stuff like, you know, I think that's the Coast Guard and Navy and stuff for fishing, DNR. So,
all right, thank you, Mr. Kent. Any other public comments? Anybody online?
I don't see any more online.
All right, I don't see anybody. Final board comment, please. Anybody? Anybody? Okay, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.